If others join, I'm sure they'll pick it up. So welcome along to the Electronic Payments and NetSuite webinar. If it gets a little bit noisy with some feedback from some of the participants, I might mute everyone, but you're not muted at the moment. So let's get into the agenda for this webinar. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what Electronic Payments and NetSuite is. I'm going to give an overview of how it works. I'll be giving a demonstration, and please do feel free to ask questions. There is a questions panel on the sort of the Citrix webinar sidebar that you can use. But if you have a pressing question, please do interrupt me unless you're muted, of course. Okay, any questions I can't answer right now, I will respond to following the webinar, so I'll note those down if there are any. Okay, before I talk about what the module is, I do need to point out I'll be discussing the Nolan Business Solutions Electronic Payments module and not NetSuite's own electronic payments module. So any of you that are not aware, there is a NetSuite electronic payments module. Theirs has not been available for that long, maybe the last upgrade or maybe the one before that. Our module has been available for much longer. Okay, so I guess the question there is, why would you choose our module instead of the NetSuite one? Well, to be honest, we are expecting our module will be less take-up will become of our module, but there are still some advantages with our module, and most notably, it's much easier to configure the payment file definitions in our module rather than the NetSuite one. Okay. So what is this electronic payments for NetSuite? So most banks these days provide software or an online portal which allows the upload or import of payment files. These payment files contain the required information to make bank transfer payments. The information in these files is things like the account number, the sort code, usually a name, some reference, and the amount you're paying. And without the import of such a file, these details would have to be entered manually. So each bank usually has its own payment file definition, what order the information is entered. Some are quite simple, others are more complex. So our electronic payments module produces this payment file, and it produces it in the correct format for direct upload to your particular banking service. So as well as doing that, it also provides all the functionality of payment processing, so generating the payment transactions, allocating the payments to invoices, and producing the remittance advice. Okay, there is a little bit of background noise, so I'm just going to pop you all on mute. And like I said earlier, if you do have any questions, just use the questions panel in your webinar sidebar. Okay, so it's the production of this payment file which really delivers the efficiencies to your company and your staff to process your vendor payments. It's nice and easy to use and eliminates that rekeying of payments into your online banking system. So therefore it prevents mistakes and saves all that time as well. Okay. So how does it work? Well, as part of a setup of electronic payments module, the payment file definition is configured. there are some standard definitions such as Barclays Internet Banking, NetWest Bankline, RBS, HSBC Backs, a couple of others that get installed as part of the EP for NetSuite bundle or module. But if your bank uses a different format, then we'll configure the format to meet your bank's specification. Once this is done, you'll select which vendors you wish to use with electronic payments and enter their bank account details. Okay, it's likely that you will have vendors that you cannot pay by electronic means at the moment. They haven't provided a bank account number for you, etc. And you will pay those suppliers in the normal fashion, the standard payment processing within NetSuite. Okay, so when it's time to pay your suppliers, the electronic payments process is followed, and we make payments and produce the payment files and also send out the remittance advice. Okay, so we're going to have a bit of a demonstration now, and I'm going to go through a little bit of bank account setup just to give you a background on that. We'll review the vendor and the information held there. We'll run some payments, we'll look at the results, we'll send some remittance advice, and we'll have a look at the payment file. Okay, and lastly, we'll just add an extra vendor to the electronic payment run to see how easy that is. Okay. So I've just switched to my NetSuite account, and when you install electronic payments, you get an extra tab within NetSuite called Electronic Payments. So I'm just going to click on that tab just to show the dashboard for the electronic payments module. Okay, all the electronic payment processes can be run from the links here in this portlet, or they can be accessed via the menu. Okay, so firstly I'm just going to show a little bit about how the bank account and payment definition is selected. Okay, so I'm just going to select the bank account setup, and here I have 3 accounts set up, and we're just going to have a look at one of them, our payments account. Okay, so just here we're linking a electronic payments bank account to our NetSuite bank account. Okay, so we'd select it from the list. I have a GL account, which type of bank, and I've selected it just here in the bank account. Okay, I've also put in my sort code, account number, and certain other bits of information. What else is key here is this file format. So on this particular account, it uses the BIB BACS format, so I've selected it there. And that's the key things we need to notice about the bank account setup for electronic payments. Okay. So now we're going to have a look at a supplier record. So I'm just going to select this from my global search. I've got a supplier here, or vendor, called Couriers Direct. So on the vendor record, or supplier record, we have a tab called Bank Payments. So I'm just going to have a look at that tab, and we can see on this tab that we've got certain information relating to electronic payments. So we've got the sort code, the bank number, we've got an account number, we've got an account name. Okay, we've selected the payment definition, or I'm actually going to change this to the BIB BACS, the same as we had on our payment account. And we have the Pay by Electronic Payment checkbox checked. So now we're going to have a look at what transactions should be being paid when we're doing our payment run. And to do this, I'm just going to run a simple aging report for our suppliers. So from reports, I'm just going to select vendors payables and the detail report. Okay, so in this report we can see our supplier couriers direct, and we can see that there's a couple of transactions that have a due date earlier than today, and we can see that they should be paid, or are due to be paid at least. Okay, I'm just going to navigate back to that supplier because I don't think I saved the file format. Quickly pop back there and save my supplier. Okay, so now we've seen what transactions can be paid, and the normal sort of rules apply here, where you may print out your age creditors report and note down which ones you want to pay and which ones you don't. But the next step to pay these suppliers by electronic payments is to go to our electronic payments menu or dashboard and select the pay bills by electronic payments. Okay, so this screen we have the electronic payments window where we can select which account we're going to use to pay our suppliers. So I'm going to select my payments account. Okay, so after I select my payments account, we can see that there are a number of transactions here in the bottom in the EP proposal sublist. So these are the transactions which are due to be paid, and I can choose which ones I want to pay or don't want to pay. I can untick some, or I can pay part of others. So I've unchecked that one. I'm just going to change the value on that particular transaction to Fleet IT Services, not the full 3,240, but down to just 1,000. Okay, so once we're happy with choosing which transactions we want to pay or not, we click on the Process Payments button. Okay, so after I click on the Process Payments button, I'm taken to a status screen where I can see the current status of my payment. So at the moment it's just pending. We have a refresh link just to refresh this screen until it's complete. I'll just do that now, see if we're complete. So it's just in progress now. It doesn't take long to process. Let's try that again. Okay. So now our status is complete, so it's processed all those payments. Okay. So let's go and see that, or the payment on the vendor record itself. So I'll go and find the vendor again. And under my Financial tab and Transactions sub-tab, I now have a bill payment transaction. Let's have a look at that transaction. Okay, so when we're viewing the bill payment transaction, in the Applied To sublist we can see which bills that were paid by this payment. So that's handy. Okay, so now we're going to send the remittance advice for this payment. Okay, I can do that a number of ways. I can go back to my status screen and we have a link there to send email remittance. Or I could come up to my menu and under Other, I've got the email remittance slips. So I'm just going to select that. Okay, and in this window I'm going to select the latest payment. So this is my latest payment reference. And after I select that, it presents to me all the remittance advice it needs to send. So I've got 3 here. So there was 3 suppliers in my payment. I paid the Couriers Direct vendor that we've been looking at. Also paid some money to Fleet IT Services, and we can see that there was the £1,000 I entered. And we also made a payment to the supplier of Computer 2000. Okay, I don't have to send the remittance advice to everyone. I can uncheck or check as required. But once I'm happy, all I have to do is click email, and it just confirms that 1 email will be sent. Okay. So we're taken back to the status screen, and it's pending at the moment. And again, there's a refresh link just to check when that process is complete. Okay, well, while that's running, I'm just going to go back to navigate back to our vendor. We'll have a look on there in a minute. Just make sure that's processing. Yep, here we go. So we've now a complete status for emailing our remittance vouchers. Okay, we should be able to see that communication recorded against the vendor record. So let's go and have a look at that. Under the communication tab, here we have our email. Okay, we can view that. With the remittance advice attached. Okay. I can see a question come in. Apologies, I might not have seen this before. Can you choose the end date? Yes, you can. Let's just pop back to the pay bills. Yeah, you can change the end date, absolutely. Just clicking on the screen here. See, I chose a date earlier than one of the transactions, so it has disappeared. There we go. Hopefully that's answered your question, Kat. Okay. So we've made our payments. We've sent the payments on the vendor record. We've sent the remittance advice. But the key thing is this payment file. So it's generated the payment file for us. And in our status window, we have a download file link. And we can also get to those via our electronic payments menu or our electronic payments dashboard. So under electronic payments list, I'm going to go to our export files. And I've got a number of them here, and I happen to know that this one is the latest one, and I know when it was run today at nearly 3:20. If I edit that file, I also have a download button here. So not only did I have download link on the status screen, I had a download button when I'm editing the export file. So I'm just going to click download, and I'm going to open it just with Notepad. Okay, here we go. Here is our payment file. It's a CSV file, which is in the right format for the BIB fax. Okay, that would be saved somewhere on your computer or on your network, and then you would use that when uploading payments on your bank software. You'd log into your bank software and choose the upload options. Every bank is a little bit different, but that's the general idea. Okay, so that's the key thing there, the generation of that payment file. Okay, let's move that way. Okay, so there are other efficiencies that electronic payments can provide. One of the key ones really is when you first start to use electronic payments, you might not have all the bank information for all your vendors, but what if you then obtain those bank details and you already have outstanding transactions for that vendor? So let's have a look at what we do in that instance. So I'm going to go and find a different vendor now, someone called Stationery Supplies. Okay, they're not set to use bank payments at the moment, but if I come into the bank payments tab on their record, I'd put a bank number in, maybe a name, an account number, and then I'd choose to pay by electronic payment. Okay, so I tick that and choose the format. Okay, and I save the record. Maybe I missed something there. Let's just have a check. Seems to have saved. Okay, so here's my vendor, and they are saved to be paid by electronic payment, and they have a bank payment definition. So just by doing that, it means that the transactions are also marked to be paid by electronic payment. And I can show you that. So if we have a look at the transactions for this supplier, let's quickly have a look at one of these bills. It has put in the information for payment by electronic payments. Okay. So that concludes the demonstration. I'm just going to unmute you all. Welcome back all. So you can now speak and ask any other questions that you may have at the moment. Kathleen, did that answer your question earlier about the end date? Or has anyone else got any questions?
Yeah, just a question about when you were selecting the suppliers to be paid. You went into the electronics payments and you selected the bank type. So you selected BIB, and then presumably it brings up a list of all of the suppliers that have been assigned to that particular payment type.
Yes.
So if you had a number of suppliers in different currencies, basically each of them would be assigned a different payment type, and you'd have to go through, say, 3 different payment types in your payment process. So the first one, you might select everything in GBP and then select a euro payment and then say a US dollar payment. And essentially you'd have 3 different payment runs and then 3 different CSV files.
You would indeed, absolutely. The payment file would be different for different currencies, so yes, you would have to have different payment runs.
Okay, and is there any way you can drive it the other way around? So you see a complete list of aged creditors, and you can select from that list which ones you want to be paid, and then it will automatically drive those different payment methods.
I don't follow the question.
So at the moment, as I understand it set up, if I have a unusual supplier that pays US dollars and I don't usually make payments in US dollars, when I come to make my payment runs, I'll need to remember to run a US dollar report. But rather than doing it that way, can I just look at a list of aged creditors and select from that the ones I need to pay, then regardless of whether the particular creditor is in US dollars or euros or GBP, it will then create separate files that way?
The answer is actually no, I'm afraid.
Okay.
You would have to pick the bank account first, which then defines the payment type.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I've got a couple of questions on the chat screen here. How do you customize the CSV file for your bank's needs? Well, that is done in some of the setup. We define the fields and the length of fields. I'm not going to give sort of full training on that today. But we can certainly, if you want to get in touch after the webinar, we can certainly discuss exactly how we do that. And is the remittance advice customizable? Yes, it is. Yeah, it's the normal PDF layouts within NetSuite. We just launched that. We use the remittance advice or payment voucher, as it's known in NetSuite. Yeah, so it is certainly customized. Okay. Is there any other questions at the moment? Okay, if there's no other questions, your feedback is very, very welcome. There should be a questionnaire which appears as you close the session. So we'd love you to fill that out. If not, you can talk to your account manager. If you're an existing customer of ours and you have an account manager, please contact them. Or you can email us on the address there, sales@nolanbusinesssolutions.com. Or you can call the main office number, or you can even tweet us. Okay, so if there's no other questions, excuse me, I'll end the session now. I hope you found it useful. And thank you for attending.